pleased to present because she's someone I have known in multiple ways. She is currently the chair of the piano and voice department at Westminster Choir College. She's a professor of voice. She teaches all sorts of courses, and the students all love her opera literature class. But I met her actually when she was one of the leading sopranos at New York City Opera, and she has sung all over the country under the baton of the most esteemed conductors and sung so many roles. It is truly my pleasure tonight to bring you my friend and colleague, Margaret Cusack.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. It's such a pleasure to be here. And may I say that I have really enjoyed all of your singing in the master classes last week. You're quite a special group, and it's really a treat to hear you. So, the focus of this class, of course, I'm dying to hear people sing, and I'm going to give you my opinions and some ideas about things. But one of the things that teaching opera literature has done has shown me the importance of knowing what the business has been as well as what it is now. Um, I'm fortunate enough to have married a tenor with whom I met in the opera Carmen at the New York City Opera. He was Don Jose and I was Micaela. And that was one time Carmen did not win the man. But in any event, he's a collector. And he collects primarily live performances from over the years. And listening to them with him over these years has been an astounding learning experience. First of all, the fun of live performance is that you hear what actually happens, as opposed to a studio recording where things are edited within an eighth note. I mean, nothing is out of tune, nothing goes wrong. Nobody misses a word, nothing like that happens. Whereas live in performance, things happen. And sometimes those things are disastrous, rarely though. But what's more fun is when a singer is having a particularly good night, and you can hear the push and pull with the conductor, and how a really good conductor can recognize it and give the singer a little bit more room to really express him or herself and enjoy the fact that their voice is in great shape, they're feeling strong and um, very and very empowered. And what happens, and I've learned a lot of things. One is that professional singers believe in themselves. It is very rare that you hear a singer who arrives at a note that maybe is not quite the greatest sound they've ever made, but who doesn't somehow believe that they can make it better. You'll hear this all the time. You'll hear people, there's even one example of the great Montserrat Caballé, who, as many of you may know, was famous for her pianissimi. And in a very early recital, she's singing the Schubert song Du bist die Ruhe. And she's climbing to the A natural, and she glitches just a little bit on the last A natural as she tries to enter it very super soft. But rather than get off the note quickly so everybody would forget that she glitched on it, she not only gets the sound she wants after the glitch, but she holds it an extra long period of time, as if to say, there, that's what I can do. And that to me is just thrilling, to hear a singer who so believes in herself that she's going to show you what she can do. So good singers never give up. They just keep going. I've learned a lot about how traditions change. The tempi that you sing arias at today is not necessarily the tempo that they were sung at 50, 60, 70 years ago. The sounds of voices, the kinds of voices used for a certain part have changed. And we'll get into that a little bit. There's one particular event that happened that I think changed the course of classical music and actually changed the course of music theater as well. Can anyone think what that is? It's one particular device. Anybody have an idea? Yeah, Jacob.
The microphone?
The microphone, recording. Specifically recording in opera. Some voices record really, really well and some don't. And so the tendency in the industry has been to use voices that do record quite well. Although in the opera house, a different voice might sound more thrilling than it can on recording. And it changed music theater enormously because um, they used mics in live performance, which opera still does not do, or at least it claims it doesn't do. There's always a lot of people saying that's not true, but as far as I know, none of the major opera houses are using microphones. So that still requires a certain kind of singing. But on Broadway, as we know, that's no longer the case. And so composers can write for vocal climaxes in the dead middle of the voice, in the speaking range. And it won't matter because they can just mic it to be as loud as it needs to be against whatever instrumental accompaniment you have. So all of these things do work to change the industry and how we judge and listen to singers. So with all that said, let's get started. Let's just start with singing. Alicia, are you first? Wonderful.
I am.
Okay, so you're going to give us some Carmen. Okay. All right, whenever you're ready.
Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, je ne sais pas, peut-être jamais, peut-être demain, mais pas aujourd'hui, c'est certain. L'amour est aux rebelle qui n'est d'apprivoiser, et c'est bien enfant qu'on l'appelle, celui qu'on vient de épuiser. Et en effet, mais dans son prière, le bas, le bien, l'autre se tait. Et c'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît. L'amour, 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 l'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. L'oiseau que tu croyais si prendre matinale ne s'envola. L'amour est loin, tu peux l'entendre, tu ne l'entends, il est là. D'entendre-toi vite, vite, il vient sauver, il vient. De quoi le tenir, il t'évite, de quoi le vider, il te tient. L'amour, 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 l'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
Okay. Terrific. That is a perfect aria in your voice. Here's why I think so. I think Carmen is a very long role, but it has a fairly limited range, and it mostly sits low. Although there's the Seguidilla does feature a B flat, you have to go up and touch it. But you're really sitting in the middle and bottom of your voice quite a bit of the time, and that seems to suit you well. You navigate the lower passaggio very smoothly, which I like a lot, and you have the right color for the sound. Okay, let's talk about Carmen. Who is she? Where's she from? Why is she working there? What is she doing there? What's the scene? Tell us this situation. Some people may not know.
So, yeah, so this is in the first act of the opera. This is where you first meet Carmen, and she is on her break from the cigarette factory. And so, what time this takes place in 1820 in Seville. And so, what's going on at this moment is they're on their break. So, she's coming up, and from working in the cigarette factory, and she's just it's been a custom thing for the men to, of course, swarm around this area because they know when they hear the bell, oh, the cigarette girls are coming up now. Let's go take a gander at them and let's go observe. So,
Right,
and she's one of them. She's getting there, she is. And they're all trying to just get her attention, just to be like,
right.
Carmen, like, look at me, talk to me, speak to me. And so and basically she's kind of essentially saying, you're right in the beginning, she's like, well, it's up to me what I want to do. I Maybe I'll give you the time of day, maybe I will not.
Mhm.
But it's not your decision, it's mine. And if you do want my attention, you better be ready for it.
Right, right. One of the first liberated women, right? And what's interesting is that at a time when women weren't, she's very sexually liberated, we seem. Right. Do you know her background at all? Have you ever looked at the Prosper Mérimée novella that tells the story?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's from this like band of thieves essentially, and she's working with them and doing all this, and then she, you hear from Don Jose's point of view a lot of the time and how he tells a story about her, and what I discovered from there is she's just even from the start she just has this like mindset that she's just really very an iconoclast essentially within all of like this time period, and in general she really just is very outspoken, having like all her own opinions and something that's not very heard of then and there, and she's definitely an intimidation to both men and women, and she really makes that very clear, so
She's
oh
actually married, isn't she? Where
yes
do
she
you
is.
know where her husband is?
I can't recall right at the
Mhm.
moment,
He's
no,
in
but I
prison. He's in prison. So she's kind of maybe ruling the gang of smugglers and bandits, or at least she would like to be. And there's some power struggles going on there too. But
yeah.
right now, she's just coming out from a break from the cigarette factory. Do you know why the men gathered around all this? Well, of course, what we have is a garrison of soldiers right next door to the factory. And what is it about the women that they are so excited about when they come out? Do you know about conditions in the
Well,
factory?
yeah, well the conditions are terrible. So it essentially it's very hot, it's stuffy, everyone's on top of each other. So when they come up, they're like drenched in sweat. They're like trying to like basically take as much clothing off as possible.
Well, and in fact, they work in very little clothing because it's so hot in the
Right.
factory. And they
Yes.
also roll cigars in there. And the way the women rolled it was they would pull up their skirts and roll them on their thighs. So
Uh-huh.
they are really wearing very little clothing. And so the men think, boy, if there are any girls we could have a shot with, it's going to be some of these women. So it's always a big deal. Oh boy, they're coming on break. Okay, so um, the women come out. Who comes up first? Do you remember what happens when the break first starts?
I think it's a bunch like before she sings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a workers before and then like her, but then she comes out right after. She's one of the last people to come out.
Right, right. And the women all sit around and sing the smoking chorus. Of all things to have in an opera, a smoking chorus about the joys of stopping and having a cigarette. Well, they do work in a tobacco factory, so it shouldn't be surprising. And I swear, when I was in Italy 20, 30 years ago, I thought it was the law that everyone should smoke. I mean, over most of Europe. So I don't know, Professor Ashbaker, if you found that when you were living there, but it was a very high prevalence. But anyway, so we digress. All right. So they're all waiting for Carmen, and they look at all the women and they sing the smoking chorus, and then the men are saying, but where is she? Where is Carmen? So then you come out. Now, when you first came out, you looked kind of unhappy. Are you unhappy?
No, I think I kind of think sometimes it's a little bit more just like, oh, here we go, same old song, same old dance again, but
Mhm.
maybe, some point, within a further discussion, there's a sense of like annoyance of like, do I have to really do this again? But then, once you get started, then it's kind of, all right,
Yeah, but
I can play along.
do you as Carmen, do you enjoy singing this to the men? Do you enjoy the power that you have over them?
I think so, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And nowadays, now here's a trajectory that I just wanted to point out. Nowadays, it's very common to see Carmen's portrayed as very sort of angry and sullen. They don't want to be there. They're there because they have to. They have to be there. They need the money, or they need to be in where all the activity is, and so forth. And to me, that makes her kind of a difficult person to like. And I think we're meant to like her, don't you? We're meant to see why people are so attracted to her. So there's a little bit of a sense of fun that I think you're missing.
Okay,
You know,
sure.
just the sheer joy of, ooh, I can make him fall over with just a flick of my finger. Oh, I'm going to entice him. No, 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 not you. And they know she's going to tease them, but they love even that much attention. And I think you kind of, if I can use a crude expression, you kind of get off on that. You know, you love that power. You love the fun of playing with these men. And that's why Don Jose is so intriguing to you. Who is Don Jose? Is he in the scene and what is he doing?
Yeah, he's one of the soldiers in the
Mm-hmm.
army. And of course, now he's not paying attention to
Mm-hmm.
Carmen at this point. And I think exactly as you said, she's kind of intrigued by that.
Yeah.
She's really like, okay, so not necessarily, not in a way where it's like, oh, he's not paying attention to me. Why is it? It's not like that. It's more so, oh, maybe this guy is worth my time because he's not paying attention. That's at least the way that I interpret it, because I don't
Mhm.
think Carmen would be like, pay attention to me. Like, I don't think she would ever do that. So I think that would be why she would be
Mhm.
kind of intrigued by him. He's the only one who's not
Right,
in
right.
that way, because like everything
And
in
then
her aria
and then
is
later
her.
on, when she sings the Segadilla, when she has to actually seduce him in order for him to untie her and let her get away from Zuniga and being sent to jail, she she relishes the challenge of getting this shy or quiet or whatever he is. We don't really know yet. We know he's kind of a um, well, we know he seems devoted to Micaela, who comes in after the habanera, before the seguidilla. We hear him talk about his mother, whom he seems to love and
Yeah,
cherish.
yeah.
So we don't know, is he a goody two shoes or what else is, we just don't know what else is going on with him yet, right? And so she makes it her business to say, wait a minute, nobody is immune from me, right? So I would love for you to start the aria again, the Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, you know, who will I love today? Well,
Okay.
I don't know. It's a game you play, and you really love this game, and everybody loves it and laughs with you. And I think to me it's important because it sets her up as a character we're going to love following through the course of the opera. And we have to love her because, well, first of all, she's on stage a lot of the time. The other part is that she really changes Don Jose. He enters, once he is in her clutches, his life goes downhill, downhill, downhill. And he becomes a different person from the first, by the fourth act, than he is in the first act, all because of her. And if she's evil or sullen, we don't get why that happens, or we dislike her for doing it. But if she's delightful, even as she's touring with him, and she uses him for a short time, and then I'm done with you. We still have to. We really gotta like her, don't you think? So
Yeah.
have some fun. Have a little more fun playing, and pick out, where you are. Pick out, oh, that one, and that one, and that one, and really see them. And really see them. I mean, I see you looking around, but I don't get the sense that you're really seeing them. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, let's try this again, and I may stop you at some point, but I may not. Let's see how it goes.
Sure.
All right.
Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, je ne sais pas, peut-être jamais, peut-être demain, mais pas aujourd'hui, c'est certain.
All right. So what have you said here?
Ooh.
Sorry. So we've got our little bit of French recitative.
Yeah. So, quand je vous aimerai, when will I love you? Ma foi,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe, maybe never. Maybe tomorrow,
Right.
but not today. That's for sure.
That's for today, absolutely not. Right. C'est
Yeah.
certain. And I think you have to say that with a little, not today, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they can all do a fake, oh, or something. Who knows how it would be staged. But you're doing better though. And really give each one attention. Look them right in the eye.
Okay.
Quand je vous aimerai. Ma foi, je ne sais pas. Perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow, something like that. Okay?
Mhm.
Quand je vous aimerai, ma foi, je ne sais pas, peut-être jamais, peut-être demain, mais pas aujourd'hui, c'est certain.
Okay, right, all right.
Sorry, I thought it was
Very good.
stopping there.
No, that was really, really good. Now let me ask you about your stance.
hmm
Okay. Why are you standing like that? Just why did you make that particular choice?
Actually, I've had a lot of conversations about this. I
Mhm.
I feel like she needs to she wouldn't be standing like with her hands crossed, and
Mhm.
I don't believe she would be standing by the side, and nor do I believe she have her hands like completely
Right,
in the front like this.
right. That's very
I think
aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of kind of like a challenge. I know that there's many opinions of thought like, oh, is she just trying to highlight her hips and all of this? And the way I think, it's more so like, it's like, all right, you want to come at me. Let's like, it's a
Mhm.
very open stance, but it's like, it's still like, you know,
Right,
let's press your luck, keep going. But, that's my
right.
interpretation.
But the one thing you must not do is play sexy.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I do
Sexy
not
is a
want
state of
to do.
being. It's not something you put on, right? And
Correct.
fortunately, you're a very beautiful girl. And I'm just going to say that it's a statement of fact, and part of you knows that, if not all of you. It's just, and so you don't have to do anything. You could just be there. You could stand there like Shirley Temple, and you would still be this beautiful woman, right? So it's all in the attitude. And I don't think you have to go out there and be like slinking your hips, which you're doing a little bit. Just go out there.
Okay.
Here I am. Might even be, maybe you'd sit, I mean, who knows what the staging would be. And if you're just out in the open, yeah, you're stuck a little bit because you have nothing to lean on. You have no frame of reference. Um, Maybe you run on. Oh, here I am. Oh, everybody's here. Oh, I can have some fun now. This is what I look forward to in these breaks, right? But not,
Right.
you don't have to play any, look at me, I'm so sexy,
Uh, right.
excuse me. It's not necessary. And again, you want to just know that you're sexy. You know that you're
Right.
beautiful. You don't have to do anything. Um, I've known a couple of very drop dead gorgeous women in my life, and one of them was a Carmen. You may remember her, Susan Vicky Vergara, and she just knew when she came into a room, everybody would turn and go, "Wow!" And she just knew it. She never played it. She never did anything to bring it out. It was just there. And so, just think about that a little bit. One more time. I know I'm hammering on this, but I have such fond feelings for this opera and its traditions. I think it's one of the greatest masterpieces there are. I've seen it or been in it 1,000 times, and it never gets old because the
Yeah.
characters are so interesting and the
Yeah,
music is just so tuneful, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, so you get my strong opinions about it.
No, and I appreciate
God.
them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Try it again.
Quand j'ai vu se marier, ma foi, je ne sais pas, peut-être jamais, peut-être demain, mais pas aujourd'hui, c'est certain. L'amour est aux enlevés qui ne peut apprivoiser, et c'est bien enfant qu'on l'appelle celui qu'on vient de refuser. Et en effet, mais dans son prière, le mal et bien l'autre se tait. C'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il m'appelait.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. Yes. Um, and you could, of course, put a hand on your hip, just because it's, I don't want to keep that away from you. I just don't want you to play sexy. Okay.
No.
So we get the cello, boom, 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 which, believe me, when you're on stage can be really hard to hear. So you want to make sure there's absolutely dead quiet when that's happening. It is very light. Um, but I think it was Warren Jones last week talked about how the piano has hammers, but none of the orchestra instruments do.
Yes.
So remember, they're just going to be plucking. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So you don't have to do da da ba 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 da 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 da. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but keep it absolutely really ooze through those half steps. Ooh, why did he do that, Bizet? Just a little chromatic scale. He does that a lot. In fact, if there's anything about Carmen that's really difficult, is the tuning between this and the card trio aria. There's some really tricky things going on there. But really enjoy that. Just that sliding down, keeping your vibrato intact, but sliding down that chromatic scale. And it's meant to just make everybody go, ooh, right? We're now in high romantic music. And high romantic music is all about suspense and release. It's about building you up and building the tension and building it, and then, finally releasing it. And Bizet understood that as well as his fellow composers. He was pretty young. He did not live a long life. And Carmen was his last major work, and he died just a few months later, supposedly of a broken heart because he thought it was such a big flop. And do you know why the audience was so upset about Carmen? Do you know? I'm going off the beaten path here, but it's kind of interesting.
I think it was mainly because it was just so scandalous. It was just very brazen for the audience to see such, in what they would call such defiance, and that at least that's what I've interpreted to
I think
be.
that's part of it. I absolutely do. It's considered in some respects the first opera of realism, really showing real life and gritty stuff on the stage. But the part that upset them the most was the murder at the end. That they would have a whole scene with a man stalking this woman with a knife and then killing her right in front of the audience.
Yes.
It wasn't that people hadn't died on stage before, but it was done very discreetly and according to certain forms. And at the Comédie Française, where this premiered, um,
March 3rd, I
Opera
believe.
Comédie, yeah, in 1875, this was a huge shock. The audience was really affronted by it. Um, and yet within a few months, within a year's time, it was a big hit. So anyway, we digress. Go back to the aria itself. If you can, start it there. Otherwise, start from the beginning.
L'amore todo le bel che ne peut d'apprivoiser, et c'est bien d'enfant le bel, celui qu'on vient de refuser. Il y en avait, mais dans son prière, le mal de bien l'autre se tait. Et c'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il m'appelait.
Now, here we go.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So, the other thing that I really liked this time was not only that you sang that so beautifully legato, but every time you went back up, it meant something.
Hmm.
That's got to make us all go, ooh, that's so lovely, Because he's not
Yes.
going up to a consonance, he's going up to a dissonance. And all of that is meant to just set us up. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Okay. And then you get to the l'amours, and well, that could be
Hmm.
done any one of a million ways. And I would explore every single one of them
Yes.
because, different colors, um, having some be incredibly intimate, maybe to one soldier. And you can do that even in an audition. L'amour, 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 what it means to you. This is a woman who, in her day and time, seems to have enjoyed sex. What a scandal! And that's really what you're singing about, without ever explicitly saying so, right? All right, I guess we better move on here. But boy, this has been fun. What a great piece for you! I can't wait to see you do it again.
Thank you
All
very much.
right, my pleasure. Okay. All right. So, who is next?
That would be me. Hi.
Wait a minute. I've got to find you here. Gallery, gallery, gallery.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi. How are you, Carolyn or Caroline?
Caroline.
Caroline. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
So, you're going to be singing one of my favorite girls.
She's really amazing. I'm very excited.
All right. Go for it. Have fun.
Thank you.
s'interessa alle occulte beltà, cose le fluvia del desio, tutta magiera, felice e fa, felice mi fa. Che sai che me parete struggi, dove tanto rifugi, sovente angosce suoi non ne vuoi dir, non ne vuoi dir sovente, ma ti senti morir.
Very good. Very good. Caroline, you did a couple of things that I really, really appreciate. The hardest thing about singing Puccini is all the pushing and pulling that you get to do. And boy, it's fun. It's great fun to be able to take your time on something and then release it and so forth. But what you did do, and I applaud this, is you kept a steady 3. And every time you moved ahead, you then came back. Every time you slowed down, you came back to your home tempo. And that's really one of the things that keeps the aria together. If you're constantly going this way and that way and not coming back to that center tempo, then that's a problem. And you were doing that very well, so I appreciate it. Okay, I would like to talk to you about some of the words that you are saying. There's a few little things in the Italian that could use a little bit of attention, but tell me what's going on here. Let's tell everybody who doesn't know the specifics of this aria what's happening.
Sure. So this is in the second act of La Bohème, and Musetta is the person who is singing this, and she is quite a feisty character. Her
Speak as if it's you. I am a feisty character.
Okay, I'm a feisty character, and my lover, kind of off and on, hot and cold lover, Marcello, is also in Café Momus. Well, I'm with my my suitor at the moment. His name's Altindoro. He's very nice, but you know, I am still torn in love with Marcello. So, in efforts to make him notice me, no, to make him not be able to take his eyes off of me, I sing this song in order to make sure he can no longer ignore my presence. And
So what are some of the things, before you sing this song, what are some of the things that you do to try to get him to look at you? Do you know what happens right before?
I'm blanking on this. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No, I can understand. And I've put you on the spot here. But she does things like she says one very critical line. She says, Marcello mi vide, ma non mi guarda il vile. Marcello sees me, but he won't look at me, the jerk. Il vile, the vile one, right?
Yeah.
And that makes her mad. So she's come to the Café Momus. What day of the year is this? It's pretty important.
Christmas. It's
Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve. And they've come into a little bit of money, so the Bohemians have decided to go blow it all, or blow some of it, at the Café Momus. And Rodolfo is very happily there with his brand new girlfriend, Mimi. And Marcello is there by himself with Shonar and Colline. And she comes in with her boyfriend, making a big scene, of course. Everybody always notices Musetta. She's a singer. That's what she does, right? So she's surprised to see Marcello there, right? And she thinks, man, look at those people. They're all my age and they're having a ball. And I'm here with this old guy. And yeah, he's got a lot of money and he's bought me some stuff, but... So what class of society does she come from?
I'd say like lower middle class, but I don't think she's the same level as the Bohemians, correct?
I'd say yes. I'd say yes. I think she's a grisette. There were several different classes in Paris in the 19th century, and part of it was, you could say you could blame it on the royalty. and the history of what was going on then, but there were a few periods where morals were very, very loose. And have you heard the term courtesan?
Yes.
Okay, what is a courtesan?
And a courtesan, somebody who, it's usually a woman, a young woman who is trying to
Hmm.
make her way up into the higher ranks, or someone who has great beauty who is being married up into the ranking. I could be wrong.
Well, she's not being married; she's being kept.
Being kept.
So men, it was very common for men to have a wife and a family, but also to have a courtesan on the side, and this was kind of accepted. And sometimes they were girlfriends who were from the ballet of the opera. Sometimes they were actresses. Sometimes they were simply beautiful women. Most of them came from relatively poor backgrounds. Some of them were actually trained by their mothers or their aunts to become courtesans, because if you were good at it, you could make a lot of money, a good living. And then as you got older, you would step into the role of taking care of the younger courtesans, helping smooth the way for them, helping take care of some of their chores, run their errands for them, and so forth. So that you were always, but they were always trying to make money, trying to make a living on a higher level than they could have made working in a factory, for example. And Musetta has never gotten to that level, although we think she's maybe touched close to it with someone like Alcindoro. Possibly because, we don't know why, possibly because she does love Marcello. She'd rather be happy than rich. Um, we certainly come to a point in the third act where we see them living in a tavern, and he's doing painting at the tavern and she's singing for the customers. You know, you'd think that would be perfect. But of course, their relationship is not that easy. Um, what do you know about Mimi?
Mimi, I believe she's a seamstress and she does embroidery, and she's also a
Mhm.
bohemian as well. She's pretty poor.
Right, right, and she is also a little bit in this world of the grisette, because we find out in the fourth act that Marcello actually saw her in the carriage of a nobleman.
Oh yeah.
That so she was doing that as well. So these are girls who are scratching together a living as best they can. They've probably either fled from homes in the countryside or were kicked out. We don't really know. We don't know anything about their families. That's not really important to the story. Let's put it that way at this point. So in comes Musetta, and she's hit it big. She's found a rich boyfriend for Christmas Eve, right? But then she sees the love of her life, Marcello, and he's ignoring her. So they must have had quite a fight. And she knows she's going to have to really do something to take care of him. Okay, so let's start the aria again. I'm going to start and stop you and just give you some ideas to think about. She's another one, like, in a different way than Carmen, she's very easily disliked. I remember directors would say to me, I want you to be as outrageous as possible, pushing people out of the way, you know, making your own space and all that. And I remember thinking, oh, but I don't think she's mean. I think she's just fun, you know? But I think that's her goal in life, is to have fun,
Hmm.
you know? And we find out in the fourth act, what does she do in the fourth act that shows that she's actually really a nice person?
Doesn't she help take care of Mimi as she's passing?
She goes and finds her on the street. She hears that she's in a bad way, and she goes and finds her and brings her to Rodolfo. And then what does she do when she sees how sick Mimi is?
Oh, she offers to get a doctor, and she runs out and offers to pay to get a doctor to bring her.
Right. She offers to sell her own earrings. Well, she tells Marcello to use the earrings, and yeah. So that's a pretty nice thing to do, right? Give up her few jewels to help this girl. Okay, let's start the whole thing again and see what happens.
Sure. think it was
Yeah, let's work that out. Let's fix that.
yeah.
There, she goes up to that beat twice in the same way, but the turn at the top isn't the same both times. It's real easy to get them confused. The first time is da 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 da, right, and the second time is da 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 da, just a little grace note, right? So I leave it to you to figure out why he did it two different ways and how you can make that dramatic meaningfully dramatic. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Okay. Okay. Also, when you say "E la bellezza mia, tutta ricerca in me, da capo a piedi," what are you saying there?
You're
What is?
saying they don't know what to do. Their every eye is like luring to me. Every eye is on me.
Yeah, but what is "E la bellezza mia"?
E la bellezza mia. Um, if people are like gushing over her, they're praising her
No, no, no.
beauty.
I want to know exactly what "E la bellezza mia" means.
That's what I have for my translations. That it's like
Okay. La bellezza is the beautiful one. Mia is me, mine, and my beauty. And bellezza is not just bella, it's bellezza. So she's saying, and my incredible beauty, tutta ricerca, and everyone, all are looking at me, da capo a piedi. What is that?
a capo pied.
Da capo?
Every head is turning
Nope. Da capo a piedi means from head to toe.
from
They're
head.
looking at me from head to toe. In other words, they are staring at you and you love it. You just adore that you have this reaction, right? Because what are the next words? Ed assaporo allor.
Yeah, and she's basically like, I want to bottle this feeling up, and she's like loving it. She's savoring it so much.
Exactly, that's exactly the right word. Ed assaporo allor la bramosia, so I savor, I taste their subtle longing. It's like, oh, that's so good, right? It's like eating a chocolate ice cream sundae, it just feels so good to feel that longing, just pouring out of these men. I mean, she's really saying some really wild things, which only someone of the grisette class could get away with. A
Okay.
nice woman couldn't say this stuff. But she can sing a song like that because people understand this is the life this is the strata of society in which she chooses to live, right? Oh, it's very sad about some of these girls and how awful their fates were. But we're going to assume that Musetta and Marcello made up for good at the end of the opera and went off to, you know, I don't know if they got a two-bedroom house in a suburb of Paris, but at least managed well. Anyway, so I need to see how much you love this, and you're saying it so. Oh, what's the right word? You're using these words that are so almost lascivious for one reason. What's that?
To get Marcello to pay attention to me.
Exactly, Caroline. Where is he in your space?
I have him in like the right corner.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him too far away,
Yeah.
and I would definitely keep him at eye level or above. You don't want to lower your eyes, and just that's who you're referring to. Get it?
Mhm.
I love this, buddy. I love that all these men look at me, right? And she even says, Felice mi fa. And I loved how you did that because you didn't do them twice the same way. You did the first one very big, which the music says to you, and the second one was much more intimate. Brava. I thought that was a great idea. Okay, start it again. And let's see how you can really, again, you're not playing sexy. You're just describing something you love. Pretend you're describing the feel of your favorite food in the whole world. Do you have a food where you would just love to just, you know, most singers do. Most of the singers I know love to eat. We're very oral people. We love the sensation. So if you can think of you're describing something that just tastes so good, it's almost obscene,
Okay.
right? That's how you feel about the way these men look at you.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
work that out. Tutari cercain me. Yeah, look at it for a second and see if you can do it without the accompaniment for a second. Do you have a keyboard? Mm-hmm.
I do not know.
Oh, that's your pitch.
Starting at
Tutari cerca. Me, ricerca in me. Right?
That's the second one.
Ba-da-dum. Do it down the octave. Me.
I don't know why I can't get this today. Interesting.
Do it down the octave. Me. Me. Yeah, use your fingers. Me. Me. Yes, that's it. Do it again. Right. Now, tutta ricerca in me. Ricerca in me da ca. Right. Okay. Now try it singing it.
Okay, up the octave.
Mhm. Yeah, why not? Mhm. One note too far. Ba-dum, ba-da-da, da-dee-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Yeah, you'll work that out. But I just want to make sure you get that absolutely the way it's written. This aria is so well known. Can't get away with any mistakes. Okay, let's go on to the next section. Can you find that on the piano?
Yeah, I think we are right about there.
Great.
Era sapore l'ora bramosia sottil che dagli occhi trasfera.
What are you looking at? You got your eyes all the way up here. It looks like, yeah, it's a nice day. I like that. Instead of, I would love to see a real naughty look in your eye, like, era sabor valor. Oh boy, do I love this. Yeah. Can we do that again?
Sure.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Right there.
Era sapore l'ora bramosia sottil che dagli occhi trasfera e dai balli vivezzi interessati alle occulte libertà. Cosa il fluvio del desiderio tutta macera felice e fa felice e fa.
Good, very good, very good. Okay. So, yeah, this is a lot better. You're getting much more specific with each phrase. So, right before she sings Era saporo valor, we'll go back there for a second. What happens? Between the time you sing me ricerca in me da capo a pie.
Well, isn't Marcello and Alcindoro starting to sing in this part too?
Right. They start throwing in little comments. The genius of Puccini, that he would just throw in these. And what does, so Marcello says, legatemi alla seggiola. You know what that is?
Isn't it? Will someone please stop this? Like, oh my gosh.
No, he says, someone tie me to my chair.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's what he's feeling like. He's like, oh, I can't stand it. You don't know if he wants to get up and slap her or get up and grab her, But that's what spurs her next line, because she hears him say that and goes, oh, I'm getting there, I'm making progress, And she doesn't quite win him over until after the aria. And there's a very specific moment where she does, but we don't have to get into that yet. So you depends on how it's staged, of course, whether you hear him say that. Legatemi alla seggiola. now I'm going to get really lascivious here and really sexy talk, right? So that's something you could think about how you want to respond to that,
Yeah.
right? And then, yes, by the end of the aria, the whole gang's chipping in. Even Mimi says, I get it, I get it. Um, she is totally in love with him, you know. And so, quella poveretta, she actually refers to Musetta as this poor little thing. Well, she being a woman, she figured it out. Yeah. Okay. Could we go back to Ed Sapporo, allora? Is that possible to find that?
Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Mhm.
Ed Saporello bramosia sottil che dagli occhi trasfera e dai balli vivezzi interessava alle occulte beltà. Così le fluvia del desiderio tutta macera felice mi fa felice mi fa che sai che me marito struggi da me tanto rifugi so bene così tuoi non ne vuoi dir non ne vuoi dir so bene ma ti senti morire.
Okay, some really good things going on there, Caroline. Um, I love that you turn back to Marcello and E tu che sai, because that is directly to him. And you who know what I'm talking about, don't you remember what we had? Don't
Yes.
you remember? And you can get in your own brain, you can get as specific and personal as you want to help funnel that. She's really putting the hammer to him now. You who know, why are you refusing me when you want me so much? Okay, so Ben, le angosce tue non le vuoi dir. Now you need to fix the little run. Non le vuoi dir so ben, ma ti sa. I think you might have an extra pitch in there. Just double check that a little bit. But you do a nice pianissimo on the top one. If you can get there loud, because I know this makes you die. You're dying. It makes you die, you know? And this is really powerful stuff. Now, in the tradition of opera, this is never sung lewdly. She's in an outdoor place. Um, there are modern productions that would have her, you know, do a striptease or do whatever else. She might stand on a table at some point. Um, who knows? She might throw her hat. There are all kinds of things, but there is always a certain decorum that's in keeping with public life in the 18th century, 19th century, sorry. And uh, I think it's possible to be, I mean, incredibly, almost graphically sexy as Musetta is in this aria without showing a single thing, without giving anything away. Now, there are modern directors who disagree with that, but I'm going to say it right here. Opera is a museum piece. Most operas are museum pieces, like the Mona Lisa. They just are. They are great creations that came out of, in cases, hundreds of years ago that we have preserved and loved because of the music that they have. And I think it's okay to treat them that way. I don't object to modern interpretations, except when I don't understand them, because when I don't understand them, I get very cranky because I don't like to feel stupid. But, but in other words, in any event, just keep that in mind about her. She doesn't do anything lewd visually, although there certainly are stories. There was a very famous soprano named Ljuba Velic who was invited to sing Musette at the Met, and she really felt like it was kind of a lesser role for her. She had sung Salome and some other things, and so she went on stage without any underwear and created quite a scandal. And when questioned about it, Rudolf Bing, who ran the opera house at that time, said, Madame Velich did a naughty thing, and that's all he would say. She was naughty, in his very reserved manner. But I think this is a great aria in your voice. It's beautiful, and I urge you to get to a really line by line, word for word translation. You've got the general gist. Now you need to know how to taste every one of those words, because Puccini's librettist Ilka Giocosa chose those words very, very carefully to bring her to life, and it's one of the best arias in ever written, I think. So thank you, Caroline.
Thank you
Beautiful
very
job. My pleasure. Okay. I do want to leave a little time for questions or discussion, but we now have James, I believe.
Hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm having a great time tonight.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So now we're going to go backwards in time.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So let's hear Monsieur le Comte.
Hai già vinta la causa? Cosa sento? In qual laccio io cadea? Perfidi! Io voglio di tal modo punirvi. A piacer mio la sentenza sarà. Ma se pagasse la vecchia pretendente, pagarla in qual maniera? E poi vi Antonio, che ho un cognito Figaro ricusa di dare una nipote in matrimonio. Coltivando l'orgoglio di questo mentecatto, tutto giova un raggiro. Il colpo è fatto. Vedrò mentr'io sospiro, felice un servo mio. È un ben che invan desio ei posseder dovrà. Vedrò per man d'amore unita un vile oggetto, che in me destò un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò mentr'io sospiro, felice un servo mio. Vedrò che un ben ch'io desio e posseder dovrà. Vedrò per man d'amore udita un figlio oggetto, che in me destò un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò, 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 vedrò. A no, lasciarti in pace, non vo' questo contento. Tu non nascesti audace, tu non nascesti audace per dare a me tormento e forse ancor per ridere di mia infelicità. Già la speranza sola delle vendette mie quest'anima consola, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa. Ah, che lasciarti in pace non vo questo contento. Tu non nascesti audace per dare a me tormento, e forse ancor per ridere di mia infelicità. Già la speranza sola delle vendette mie quest'anima consola, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa.
Bravo, bravo. Beautiful job, beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there's so much you can say about Figaro and all of those characters. Do you remember who wrote this story originally? Not the libretto, but the original story.
The Beaumarchais plays.
Right, the Beaumarchais, Pierre Caron Augustin de Beaumarchais, who was really quite an interesting guy. There are people who think he was as much as valuable to the American Revolution as the Marquis de Lafayette, even though he never set foot in America. But he raised tons of money and secured the funding of all the weapons for the Battle of Saratoga, for example. I mean, he was quite a guy. He was a watchmaker. He was an intriguer. He tried to sell this first as a musical to the Théâtre de l'Opéra Comique, and they turned him down, so he put it into a play, the first one, which is, of course, The Barber of Seville. Like so many comedies of the time, the characters come from commedia dell'arte to a certain point. Do you know what commedia dell'arte was?
Kind of the archetypes of the traditional, like, happy face, sad face, kind of surface value characters, stock characters there.
Stock characters, right. It started probably in the 1400s in Italy, went quickly to France. It was popular for centuries. Traveling troops would go all around, and they did have stock characters. They had the wily young servant girl, often called Serpina. In Figaro, it's Susanna. They had the Pierrot in French, or Pantalone, and oh gosh, his name is escaping me. The intrigue, the guys who could sort of fix everything, and Figaro was certainly that guy. Then they had a couple of people from the upper class. One was a blustering doctor who always knew better than anyone else, and we have Dr. Bartolo in that role. We have the Count, who's kind of a little bit of a cross between the swaggering captain who pretends to be very brave in battle, but also who would run at the first sign of trouble. But he's also a little bit, he and the Countess are borrowed from opera seria, the serious opera of the time, noble characters who represent the upper class. And now, in The Barber of Seville, do you remember what the relationship between the Count and Figaro is?
The Count hires Figaro to get Rosina and the Count together, basically.
Right, to help him win this girl who is being held by her ward. I mean, as the ward of Dr. Bartolo. So they have to do a little bit of intriguing. And in that one, the Count, even though he's a nobleman, he's a little bit of one of the jesters like Figaro, because the two of them put together all kinds of scrapes and things. They could be Schaunard and Marcello in Bohème, you know, two young guys trying to help this girl get together. But then we get to the marriage of Figaro, and it's some years later, and the Count has married his Rosina, who is now the Countess. And what's their relationship now?
Well, Figaro is, I mean, definitely lower class than the Count now because he's in the Count's manor.
Norwegian,
The
right?
Count is allowing them to live there and kind of be
Right.
his
What does he? What
servo.
does what does he do for the Count? Do you know? What's his job?
He not waits on him, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just
He's
yeah
sort of his
basically
manservant. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And Suzanne is the maid to the Countess. And so we learn very quickly that they could never be buddies because
Mhm.
the class system is so rigid and so accepted by every single person on earth, at least in Europe in those days. And in the United States, there's no chance of them being pals. And now Figaro finds himself trying to protect his own girlfriend from the Count's advances, right?
Mhm. Right.
The advantage of the Commedia dell'arte young soprano is that she's not quite as innocent as the French ingenue. The French ingenue is so innocent, virginal. I mean, it's almost like she's stupid, but she's sweet. The Italian damigella has a little bit of sass to her and knows she's got one eye open all the time. And she gets what's going on very quickly. She's the first one to recognize, for example, that the Count is putting the moves on her. And Figaro says, "What do you talk? How can you say that?" And she says, "Let me tell you, it's happening." And then Figaro goes crazy and says, "Oh my God, she's right. What am I going to do?" All right, so all this to say, the Count, how dare he go after Figaro's girlfriend, right? Has he no regard for his former buddy? Has he no regard for the fact that they're in love? No. Why?
Well, him wanting to exercise the feudal right kind of puts his power in question if he can't. Um,
Right.
so
And that's
what is
the big issue,
that's
power.
the power struggle.
He holds everything. He owns everything in sight on that place. He owns everybody in sight. And that's really what drives this aria. How dare they question me as the leader? They're laughing at me. That's
Mhm.
what he thinks is happening, right? You
Right,
know, that first line is a quote of what they just said, right?
right, right.
Um, and he, what the heck are they going to make a fool out of me? Out of me? I'm the boss. I am the supreme boss in this household. How could this possibly, you know, I già vinta la causa? Are they kidding me? Um, Nobody wins but me. Nobody. And that was so well understood by everybody in every strata of society. In fact, there was a very popular novel in the 1700s called Pamela. It was written by an Englishman, Samuel Richardson. It was written in diary form. And it's about a young girl who is spirited away and she's going to lose her virtue to the man who kidnaps her. And after many adventures and so forth, she finally ends up marrying him. He treats her like an equal and marries her, which is to us just unthinkable right now if he's mistreated her so badly. But he offers her marriage. Okay, all is forgiven. Well, many versions of Pamela was so successful that a number of composers set comic operas and serious operas based on that general story, except that in many cases they couldn't bear that Pamela was of low birth. So they made her a long lost countess or a long lost princess so that she would be of upper class. And then it was much more acceptable that she would end up marrying the nobleman who
Right.
kidnapped her. So I bring this up only to say that the class system was so established and so rigid and so unquestioned that this fuels the Count's outrage. And I think you have to really have a good sense of that to see why he becomes so furious. And he doesn't sing a buffa aria, he sings a real opera seria, serious piece. Um, in those days, they had what they called mezzo caratteres, mixed characters. And the Count is sort of a mixed character because he's partly opera seria and partly buffa, partly from opera buffa. All right, so I'm getting on too far. All right, I have to say, I think your Italian is quite good. I think your legato was very good. I love the tempo. I love that you really let that second part be in two. Da dee da dee da dee da. It has slowed down in recent times in many performances because people like to sing more slowly now and more luxuriously. And do you listen to recordings?
Yes, I listened to Dwayne Croft, the Met recording.
Mm-hmm.
Hildebrando d'Arcangelo has one.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Hampson, and then I mean more names that I can't remember right now, but
Right. And you go back into the 50s and the 40s and listen to some of those baritones?
not as often. No.
Well, I would recommend, I could play a little bit of it right now, but I would recommend Giuseppe Valdengo.
Okay.
He sang on a recording with Fritz Reiner. And one of the reasons I would recommend him is because his Italian is so, well, I actually have it here. I'm going to play just a few minutes of it. Just everybody bear with me. I think it's fun.
Hai già vinto la causa. Cosa sento? In qual lancio adea? Senti, io voglio in tal modo punirvi. A piacer mio la sentenza sarà. Ma se pagasse la vecchia pretendente, pagarla in qual maniera? E poi d'Antonio che l'incognito Figaro ricusa di dare una nipote in matrimonio. Coltivando l'orgoglio di questo mentecato.
Hear how the orchestra makes him, drives him up.
Tutto giova giro. Il colpo è fatto.
Okay, I just wanted to play a little bit of that so you can hear an Italian with a really bright voice, just, make all of those words crystal clear, but also so that you can hear the relationship between the orchestra and the singer. Mozart gave accompanied recitatives with orchestra to upper class characters, with two exceptions. One is Figaro and one is Susanna. And it was partly in homage to the singers who portrayed those characters in the original production. But in general, aristocrats got orchestras, peasants got harpsichord, secco recitative. But the fun of that recitative is the play, how the orchestra builds up and either feeds your idea or responds to it. And you have to decide in each case which way is it going. So, can I hear the recitative again? And can I hear a little bit more? Can you really think of that as how dare they? How dare they? I own everything. I am the supreme boss on this property. On what's the name of their estate? I can't think of it now. Anyway, I own everything in sight, and these people are daring to defy me. It's so totally unacceptable. So go.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hai già vinta la causa? Cosa sento? In qual laccio io cadea? Perfidi! Io voglio di tal modo punirvi. A piacer mio la sentenza sarà.
Calm down a second.
Ma se pagasse la vecchia pretendente, pagarla in qual maniera? E poi vi Antonio che a un cognito Figaro ricusa di dare una nipote in matrimonio. Coltivando l'orgoglio di questo mentecato,
Rev up.
tutto giova un raggiro. Il colpo è fatto. Vedrò mentr'io sospiro, felice un servo mio. E un ben che invan desio ei posseder dovrà. Vedrò per man d'amore unita un vil oggetto, chi me destò un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò mentr'io sospiro, felice un servo mio. Vedrò ch'io ben ch'io lesio e posseder dovrà. Vedrò per man d'amore unita un vil oggetto, che me destò un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò, 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 vedrò. Ma no, lasciarti in pace, non vo questo contento. Tu non nascesti audace, tu non nascesti audace per dare a me tormento, e forse ancor per ridere di mia infelicità. Già la speranza sola delle vendette mie quest'anima consola, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa. Ah, che lasciarti in pace non vo questo contento. Tu non nascesti audace per dare a me tormento, e forse ancor per ridere di mia infelicità. Già la speranza sola delle vendette mie quest'anima consola, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa, e giubilar mi fa.
Terrific, terrific. And I love how you found places to rest. You found places to pull it back and then build again. I would have more fun in the la,
Yeah.
that's a difficult moment for any baritone to sing. So you're singing it very well, so I don't want to mess with it too much. But I think you can take it further. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so yeah, that's a different way of presenting it. Much more of a they will not make a fool of me. They can't. That's not permitted. It's just not the way life goes. Not in
Yeah.
this society.
It seemed
And
more active. Yeah.
yeah, it really is. It's much more I can't allow it. And you could even think about, is he protesting too much? Is he really afraid they're going to do it? But I don't think so yet. It's not until after he finds out that Marcellina is Figaro's mother
Right.
realizes the whole thing is lost, and there's nothing he can do.
Right.
Um,
Right.
although then they play the last trick on him, and he still thinks he's going to win. But that's what he expects. He expects to win every single time. So the reason I mention recordings is I think everybody should listen to 2 dozen recordings of their arias, different singers, and listen to the Italians for the Italian arias. Listen to people who are, like a Hampson and some of the other people, Forostowski, anybody else who's a really well-regarded baritone, to see what they offer. What are their traditions? What does everybody do? What do some people do differently? And then put them all aside and work on your own sound in your own voice, because you don't want those voices guiding you. You might think, oh boy, the way Valdengo's language is so clear. Let me see if I can do. It's really interesting how he does la colpa è fatto. The only thing he stops on that's not a legato is that double T, and that's how he's really using his own language beautifully.
Right.
There's la mia infelicità. He gets those 3 different vowels in there very, very clearly. That's something you might want to listen to. This is from a recording. It's a live recording from the Met from 1952, before any of us were born, including me. And anyway, I just want to get you encouraged, all of you, to be encouraged to do that, because you just learn so much. You learn so much. I was telling Professor Ashbaker that I'm going to brag a little bit about my husband. When he was doing a Verdi opera called Aroldo, which is not done very often at all. It's one of the more obscure Verdis. And the end of the second act starts with an ensemble, one of Verdi's big ensembles that starts with like one voice and very small orchestra, and then builds and people add to it, and it builds into this big, tremendous concertante and ends the act. And because my husband had listened to thousands of hours of Verdi, when he started that concertante, he and the conductor were just absolutely in sync. There was another one later in the opera that was started by the baritone, and he could never quite hook into it just from the very beginning. It was just clear he wasn't as comfortable with the style. He was young, it was fine, it worked out. But it's so much better if you've listened to 1,000 recordings and you know how this composer thinks, how he writes. Someone once said to me, if you're going to sing Brahms songs, you ought to listen to the piano works and the concertos and maybe even some of the symphonies, and then you get to know how a composer thinks. And should you read all the background material? Should you read the Beaumarchais plays? Should you read all of that? Well, don't have to. Plenty of singers don't. But certainly the librettist and the composer had read them and put a whole lot of information from that into the opera. They made changes, they shortened things, they cut characters, did all kinds of things. But it just helps you as a singer to become more prepared and just plain better at your craft the more you know. It is a tradition. It's really important to listen to recordings from people from long ago. You're going to hear different kinds of singing. We accept a much darker voice now than we used to, as it records better. Much darker. I wonder if Renata Tebaldi would have been quite the star she was with her bright sound if she were coming up nowadays. Fortunately, we never have to find out. Anyway, does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about? I've kind of been talking a lot. Yeah, Mary.
So as you were talking about singers that were singing in the 40s and 50s, are there any singers that are currently at like the major opera houses that you found really encompass that, kind of like bel canto sing? I mean, like I'm only, I feel like I have such fresh ears. Like, what are your opinions about the singers nowadays?
Oh, sure. Well, the fun about the really major singers is they all have distinctive thumbprints. They all have something that makes them immediately identifiable. But I would say if you were going to listen to bel canto of the current singers singing it, I think Damrau Diana Damrau does well with it. Netrebko has sung a lot of bel canto. I'm not quite sure that's her thing. I think she sings it as Anna Netrebko sings, and believe me, she thrills me. I love Netrebko, but I don't necessarily think that her Don Pasquale is going to be the one that Norina is going to be the one that's going to be your guide. That's just my personal opinion. Edita Gruberova, who just retired in Vienna, is excellent in the bel canto repertoire. Just a fantastic singer who just sang her last performance at the age of 73, I think. Just really devoted to her craft in every possible way. Yeah. Professor Ashbecker, you probably have some ideas on that too.
Well, in my Italian, French, German, and English class, I have lots and lots of singers that I recommend singers listen to because, and most of them are from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s because the singers today, everyone listens to. And I think that there are, I mean, uh, Juan Diego Flores, when he does some of the stuff that he does, it's pretty spectacular. And so, I think you and I could probably sit here and talk about singers all night long until the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. We used to have parties in New York where we'd have friends over and we'd play Who's the Singer? And we'd play something that was a little unusual and you'd have to guess who the voice was. I was great with the sopranos, just great. And some of the other voices, not so much, but yeah, that's fun to do, because you really get to, as I say, singers have distinctive. I mean, Renee Fleming has distinctive stylistic choices, not just the sound of her voice, but distinctive choices that she makes. Some of the way she scoops, the way she incorporates her low voice. And that makes her who she is, and that's really exciting.
Cecilia Bartoli does that too. Very, very specific.
And she's a real conundrum. I mean, she has unearthed so much wonderful neglected repertoire of people like Johann Adolf Hasse and composers who were very, very important in their own time, but very quickly forgotten once they were gone. And she's brought so many of these, and yet she recorded the early Italians, your basic 18 Italian songs and arias, and didn't put a single ornament in any of them, and did them with the piano, and it was really shocking that she would have done that. She must have put that out in a hurry, is all I can think. But but she has done some amazing stuff in finding off the wall repertoire that's been neglected.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anybody else have a question? There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to think about, and I know you're all you have almost too much to listen.
Oh, I think she froze.
Best thing. But when you're learning an aria, really go out and listen to 20 different people, and then learn it yourself and put your own voice into it and see what you come up with.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Professor Cusack. This has been wonderful. I love the depth that you bring to the roles and your perspective from all of your experience. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for a terrific class.
You're so welcome. What a treat. And thank you to the singers.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. All right. You guys have fun. I look forward to hearing you in concerts and master classes as you continue.